Thank you. Okay, so even though Kim is blonde, we're not from Denmark. We're from Holland, actually. And this is a novelty, actually, because we have never done a talk together. So it's a brand new talk. We just finished the slide like 20 minutes ago. So given the fact that it's a sort of about Agile, we haven't got a clue when it's finished, right? It's like a regular project, so don't worry. So we're going to talk about this new software development methodology that we've created last week, and we think it will rock. So bear with us. So to introduce ourselves, my name is Sander. I'm an independent dad, independent programmer, independent architect, whatever. I do talks at conferences, I write. I used to work for a small company called Capgemini, who have an office here, by the way. I've been there. And these are my emails and Twitter tags and stuff like that.
Well, my name is Kim van Wilgen. I'm head of software development at the same company where Sander works. We also worked together at a previous company, an insurance company, where I was also head of IT. And I have a background in management since 2005. And I've been programming since this year. So I've made my first application and my first green build.
You're right. She actually committed her first code into Git last week. So that's actually amazing. So she's learning TypeScript now, really good. So let's start off in a bit of history, right? And the history is about software development methodologies. And there has been quite a few. And I'll give you a short background for those of you who are too young to appreciate the true value of waterfall. You're not too young? Oh, that's good. So, waterfall. So, how old do you think waterfall actually is? How old is that? Give me a year. Dinosaurs, yeah, that's true. So, actually, waterfall sort of came out of this particular white paper. It's called Managing the Development of Large Software Systems. It was written by a guy called Winston Royce. Now, in this white paper, written in 1970, right? Basically before you guys were born. Is anybody of you born before 1970? Oh, God, I'm the only one.
Oh, yeah, there's one.
Oh, welcome. We still survive in this business, right? Pretty cool. So in this white paper, there's this picture, which is probably one of the most famous pictures in this industry, right? Except for some Dilbert cartoons and stuff. Now, this particular picture actually led to the term waterfall, because sort of it comes down. Basically, the only reason it comes down in this picture is because they didn't have proper drawing tools, so he just had to put them. It didn't fit on one line, right? So he had to put them down, and that's all it is. Well, this model says you have all these responsibilities, all these stages, and you only do them once. So you do analysis only once, right? And once it's finished, you deliver a book, basically that's what it is, to the next guy, or girl, of course, these days, and then they do the design, right? And when the design is totally finished and complete, you hand it over to the poor developers. The last time I did a project like this was in 1996, I think, no, 1998, when I got this book of 837 pages of text. And they asked me, here's a team, can you build this stuff? And it was my first project at a bank, and I didn't have a clue to what to do, right? That is waterfall for you. And of course, testing. Is anybody of you a tester? Some half people, and okay, only a few, right? Poor guys. So in waterfall, you just drop into the project in the end, when everything is done and complete, and put into production almost, and then you get 2 weeks to test it, because there's no more time to test it, because we have to deliver deadlines, stuff like that. Well, this is basically why waterfall fails. Now, the thing is, if you read this white paper really well, you could actually see that the next picture in this white paper is actually this one. In the white paper, Winston Royce says, you know, in every one of these stages, you should be able to go back, appreciate the feedback, go back, and change what you did before, and then go on to do what you were doing, right? There's a quote in the white paper that says, note that what you do, basically, it is simply the entire process done in miniature to a time scale that is relatively small in respect to the overall effort. I know that by heart, right? Basically, in 1970, he said, hey, you should be doing iterative development. Well, nobody picked it up back then. That was, except for the invention of null, the most expensive failure we ever had in this field. Now, later on in time, we got to do agile, right? Who of you is in an agile project? Right, all of you. Who of you is in a Scrum project? Who of you likes Scrum? Good. So here's Scrum, right? Basically, for most people, agile has become Scrum. There's much more to agile, like extreme programming and stuff like that, and DSDM and SMART and all these other approaches out there, but Scrum sort of took the world, right? Scrum is a very basic thing, right? It has 16 pages to explain what it is. It has iterations called sprints. It has a backlog. It has a sprint backlog. And you do daily stand-ups called Scrum meetings. And in the end, you evaluate. That's basically Scrum, right? You can now do the certification and become the certified Scrum. Who of you is a certified Scrum Master, by the way? Oh, sorry. So for a while, when I started doing Agile, like in the late 90s, for a while when I did talks about Agile at conferences, people start sending me this Dilbert cartoon, right? People were saying, you know, Agile just means we do not do any planning anymore, we don't document, we just write code and try to ship it done, right? That is not what Agile is, actually. Although it has been used in various ways, right? Now, to my experience, having been to Agile conferences for over 20 years, I don't go there anymore. I just don't like them anymore. The thing is, we went in all these different directions with Agile. Directions that I don't really appreciate. I'm a developer. I want to write code, right? I don't want to spend time in changing the world or whatever you do. And there's more people who feel like this. Dave Thomas says, well, Agile is dead, right? And he says, I stopped going, or I never went to Agile conferences because they just went in different directions. To give you some ideas about that, I'll show you some quotes, right? These are quotes from Agile conferences. Now, if you read them, I'll read them to you out loud, because they're just plain, I don't know what to call it, stupid. Let's call it stupid, right? And this is just saying, make sure you don't miss the Agile elephant versus the waterfall elephant in the lobby. What is that, right? I haven't got a clue. This is stuff that goes on at Agile conferences. Conferences you don't want to go to, right? During this session, we are going to discuss the happiness index of projects. What? Do you have a happiness index in your project? You do? We have a blockchain, right? Glenn told me to mention that, so it's anyway. And we add ready for celebration before the done column on your Kanban board. Ready for celebration? This is just work, guys. We write code, we ship it, done. We don't have to eat cake all day. I'm a diabetic, so I can't eat cake every day, so I don't do that, right? So it's to me, Agile has become really, really thin, right? The meaning of the word Agile, although I have evangelized it for years and years, is sort of slipping down. It's a bit like my friend Alan says. Agile has become do Scrum badly and use Jira. That is what Agile is these days. So that means it's probably time to invent something new. And Kim is going to talk about that. So switching, but this is new to us, how to switch stuff, right? So,
okay, let's introduce flow. We thought the Agile is dead, so we need something else, and we thought of our own software development methodology. And we thought it would be great fun to add all the worst practices of all the methodologies in one method and see how it goes and how many money we can make from that.
I thought that would be a good idea, right?
Yeah. So why yet another methodology? Well, this is the hype curve. Does anybody know the hype curve? Yeah, that's great. Okay, everybody should. We have this peak of inflated expectations. That's where everybody thinks, wow, this new idea, that's just great. It is the silver bullet. That's what people are thinking at that point in time. Because everybody who touches this new thing just makes it turn into magic, right? And then a lot of people...
Like blockchain, right?
Yeah, it's like blockchain. Yeah.
And serverless.
And Agile also has kind of these characteristics because everybody was touching Agile and everybody was doing great. Specifically, Spotify was doing great, right? And blockchain. And somehow, all the other companies started doing it And not all the companies are doing just as great as Spotify is, right? So Agile is coming down from the peak of inflated expectations, which means we're making less money from it, because people will come back to waterfall and stuff like that. Some of them still remember, some of the COBOL guys, right? So we need another method. And we had to find a new name, of course. So naming is a bitch, right, in all software development. So we thought long and hard about it, and we thought, well, we need some Japanese words. We thought about origami, because we can fold the Post-its, right? And you can make beautiful pictures if you Google it, because you can make all these flowers and everything. And we also need crusty therein, in the word, so something like holacracy or sociocracy or idiocracy. And we need to start it with a D, because we have continuous delivery and continuous deployment and all this stuff with the D. So we thought maybe continuous discovery or continuous disappointment or continuous disagreement.
That's what we have, actually.
Yeah. But we went for flow, because it's short. You can actually have flow days and flow conference and everything. So that's good, right, for marketing. It's also great on T-shirts. You can read it from far in the room. And it's great for management, because I am a manager, right? And I've been bashed, because everybody says, yeah, we're agile, so we don't need to make a plan for you or something. So now I can bash all you guys back, because I have to say you have to go with the flow and make a planning. So that's great for me, right? So that's the name. Okay.
Oh. So the first thing we thought about was, of course, Scrum, right? You all know Scrum, so having some elements from Scrum in our methodology is probably good. So we thought, you know what, we'll keep sprints in. And I'll explain to you why, right? This is what we call a burn down chart. You've seen these before, right? Anybody who has never seen a burn down chart? Has anybody of you ever seen it burn down, actually? I have an example in that slide. It usually burns up for some reason. I don't know why. So this is from a project that I was at in Belgium. And this is one of their sprints. So basically, if you look at the line that goes across, that's a trend line. It says, well, if you work okay, then you have probably finished all your work here, right? So in the end of their sprint, they still have some work left. Have you ever done that? So this company called that a failing sprint, right? It's basically because we're too stupid to plan, too stupid to estimate. That's what project manager actually told me in this particular project. And then the next sprint came along. So the next sprint had a similar line, right? They still had some work left. And the third one, remember these are a month-long sprints. This was a terrible one, right? So, and they had a fourth one, and a fifth one, and a sixth one. And they had, in the end, after these 6 months of work, the project manager got really angry, because instead of having done the work that he had planned that we should have done, we didn't. We did less work on it than we were expected to do. So he got mad, and he calculated that for the 3 remaining sprints, instead of the average of 80 points, points are terrible, by the way, you don't have to use them, instead of the 80 points that we did on average so far, we needed to do 300 points in the 3 remaining sprints to make the deadline. And of course, he counted on us to do the work, right? He brought in extra pizzas, sushi every now and then. I don't like sushi. So anyway, of course, this project failed miserably. So sprints are an ideal way to start off with, because the thing is, most projects will actually have sprints work as a mini project, right? You plan stuff, you estimate it in story points. Do you do story points? Stop doing that. You don't need to, actually. I'll explain that briefly. Do I have the time for that? Yeah, I'll explain really briefly. And then people commit to doing the work, and then something bad happens, whatever. Somebody goes on a vacation. Suddenly, maybe somebody turns in sick, like some guy on our team yesterday. Or maybe it's just more complicated than we thought it would be. And we don't make the end of the mini project, which is called a sprint. And we do that sprint after sprint after sprint. So this is a good technique to make projects fail, actually. And by the way, estimation, I'll explain that very briefly. If you have enough work items on your project, or stories or tasks or whatever you have, you can just count them instead of estimating them. Because something that is called the law of large numbers applies, which means if you have a large enough population and you estimate it, in the end, you will end up pretty near the average, right? If you have a scale from 1 to 5, and you estimate 100 items, guess what the average outcome will be? It will be around 3, for sure. So stop doing these stupid estimation sessions and planning poker and whatever you do. Just count them. It's much easier. Try it. So what else do we need?
Yeah, and gamification, of course. You already mentioned planning poker. We also have delegation poker. So we have all these bunch of games, right? And as a manager, the team said, okay, we need more autonomy. And giving away the ability to play games was one of the easiest steps for management. So we did that immediately, just to give it to you. And this is what it becomes, right? This is the workspace of Zappos. And this is what autonomous teams do. Do any of you have a working space that resembles this working space? Do any of you want to work in a space that looks like this? Yeah, you do.
You again.
Great. Next time we'll do it with threesome, right?
Yeah, talk. She means the talk, right?
Yeah, the talk. And this is a living room for a working space. And what if you like structure? What if you like rest? Not RESTful APIs, but just a restful environment. Then you won't feel at home in this place, right? So is this really autonomy, or is this something that's called mandatory fun? You don't have the autonomy to have a clean working space at Zappos. And for instance, this is me.
Yeah,
I'm first. This is me at a job interview at Coolblue, which is one of the greater companies in Holland on software development. And I was actually in a room with all the balls, and I had to sit in it to do a job interview. And maybe we've just gotten a step too far. But anyway, we need gamification, right? Because it's great, and we can also do LAN parties, which I really like. So we're definitely keeping them in flow. We added a 20% mandatory time spent on games, of course, just as Google days. And clients will not ever suspect that we are actually doing work. So if a client enters the room, we instantly start playing games, right? Got it, right? And you have to bring your own controller. That's just how it is now. If you don't have your own controller, you can borrow one, and you can register that in a blockchain.
The sales, you mean? Yeah, good. So and then we need to talk about teams, of course, and roles, and about resources. Do you have managers in your company? You don't? You have, right? You have everything. So you have. So managers usually. I don't know. I'll talk about managers later. But on Scrum and on the Scrum guide and the other guides you read, it's like, a team should be 7 plus or minus 2 or 6 plus or minus 3, depending who you believe. Or if you believe Jürgen Appelo, he says somewhere between 5 and 9, but not 8. Because it's harder to make decisions, right? I don't know how he does that with 6, but I guess you can still meet up with it. So the thing is, we were wondering about how to deal with teams. Now, we looked at the more enterprise agile stuff, right, which is also out there. If you run into enterprise agile stuff, run away, please. So, as an example, this is disciplined agile delivery, which is one of the enterprise agile approaches. I will just show you the picture of the roles they have in their agile documents outside of the team that's actually doing the work. So they're basically these. These are the roles that are described. And it's really great stuff, right? Like they have a reuse engineers team. What is that, right? Is this still agile? I wonder, right? So we thought about adding all these rules to Flow. And we thought, you know what? We should have more roles than all of the other approaches, right? That will make it work for sure, right? But then we decided, you know what? That is probably for enterprise agile. We're doing small projects again, so we thought, how many roles do you need? Like Scrum has 3, right? You have the Scrum Master, which is sort of the knight in shining armor, and then you have the product owner, who's sort of like the previous project manager with a different function title, and then there's the team, right? The team is all the rest. And we thought, what the heck? Managers refer to us as resources anyway, so why bother? We'll just call everybody a resource, right, in Flow. That makes it really clear who we are. We're basically resources who you can put in a factory to create or to manufacture software or whatever we do, right? And by the way, if you want to be a real resource, you have to grow a beard. So I know this is a .NET-oriented conference. If you go to a Java conference, everybody has beards, right?
And glasses.
Even the women. So you have to grow a beard. That's it, right? Okay. So and then everybody wants to be self-organized, right? You need self-organizing teams. Are you in a self-organizing team? You know, at most teams, I try to tell the teams that I work with, you have to be self-organized. And the first question they ask is, okay, great, so what do you want us to do? This is not a joke, guys, this is real. So the problem with self-organization is that for most people in teams, most developers, it's way out of their comfort zone, right? So you have to give them some guidance on how to become self-organizing and self-steering and whatever you might have, and prioritizing yourself, and you know, picking stuff from the backlog. We created a procedure for that, by the way, but it's not in the slide deck, so it's for Flow 2.0. And the thing is, here's some guidance, right? This is basically the way to turn self-organizing, right? We'll show you how to draw an owl. We'll draw the 2 circles, and then you guys draw the rest of the owl. That is how most organizations see self-organization. So this is what's going to become the guideline for that in Flow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we need a DevOps mindset, because everybody's doing DevOps right now. And there's a large discussion, is it Ops Dev or is it DevOps? You can find tremendously amounts of articles on this and discussions and blogs, because DevOps tells us something about dev focusing on coding your infrastructure. And there are people now who says we have to turn it around. It's a big thing. Because if you turn it around, it means that you have a front-loading ops considerations relating to applications operability, security, scale, etc. early in the process.
I like the etc.
Yeah, me too. Is anyone in an ops dev team already? Because that will be a very early adopter.
I know you would be.
No one, right? This is very new. And also, we have this one, the SecDevSecOpsSec. This is not a joke. This is actually out there. Because security is saying, okay, we should have security up front, and we should have security in the middle, and we also should consider security at the end. So we have to be everywhere with security, which is kind of insecure. It makes us wonder, where are the analysts? They never went into the equation, right? Where are the testers? We just ignore them. Where are the project managers?
There's 2 of them.
Yeah, that's true. And where are the project managers? Everybody's forgetting about the project managers.
Yeah, that's sad,
That's
right?
sad. So I went and found the origin of DevOps. And this is Patrick Dubois. He is from Belgium. And he just was kind of organizing something, and he called it the Agile System Administration Days, which was kind of long to put on a leaflet. So at a certain point he thought, well, okay, we want to talk about development and operations working together, so maybe we can call it DevOps Days. And he said there was nothing to it. There was no grand plan. There was nothing, no deep considerations about the order of the words that we're obtaining. So that's just something we are doing. We are making it complex. It's just about working together and collaborating, which is hard enough on its own. But of course, we want a collaboration mindset. And we thought, okay, we have to add community, because business isn't enough. We have to have development, obviously, and operations, although there is also the no-ops movement, so maybe we can get rid of the guys. Are there any persons here from operations? Oh, great. Yeah, we can just bash them, right?
This isn't a DevOps Days
conference,
right?
I know. But you never know. Somebody might get lost.
There's no testers either.
And this time we want the analysts in, because we think they are important. And we want, obviously, security. So that makes us come DevOps anal sex. Which is great, I think. But maybe it's a bit long, so we're just going back to resources and calling it RES. Because the other thing might get some weird pictures, right?
Wow. So what else do we need to have in this particular new software development methodology? Well, of course, we need to have meetings, right? As many as possible. And I'll explain to you why that is, actually. and also how to prevent you from getting stuck in meetings. So let's discuss meetings that we already know of, right? Like stand-up meetings. Do you have stand-up meetings or scrums or whatever? You do, right? You don't? You know what it is, right? Right, okay. Basically, I'll explain briefly. Basically, a stand-up meeting is something you do every day with the whole team. It's a bit of a dispute whether the product owner can say something or not. I have teams in the company we work for that the agile coach or scrum master says, no, the product owner cannot speak up because he's a chicken and we are pigs. I'll explain that later during drinks. And anyway, usually you go around and everybody tells what he's been doing yesterday, what he'll do today, and which are the impediments. You know, the stuff that you get stuck at and need somebody's help, and somebody else can say, oh, I'll help you out, right? That's basically what a stand-up meeting is, for those of you who don't know it. If you haven't tried it, try it. If you have done it, you know, I've done these things for like 20 years now. I get pretty bored with them because I've seen them. I have 3 every day because I work for 3 teams, which means it costs me like 45 minutes a day. So basically what I advise you to do, if you have stand-up meetings and you have different teams, please also visit the other ones. Right? Because that saves a lot of time when you cannot do real programming, right? It saves you like half an hour a day. So that's a good thing to do, right? And then what I see in a lot of companies is that managers are saying, yes, we like the stand-up meeting, the idea that everybody sort of can tell what he's doing and what he'll do the next time. But it takes way too much time, so we'll do them once a week. And we'll do that on, for instance, Tuesday morning when everybody should be working, and we'll take like 3 hours for it. I have seen that on actual projects, right? That is terrible. So stand-ups are good because they save you from real programming, right? And then there's retrospectives. You know what a retrospective is, right? It's the mechanism that you have in agile approaches where at the end of a sprint or an iteration, you go sit together with the whole team and evaluate what you've done, what you've built, you do a demo, and then, of course, you discuss what you will do the next time right after that. Now, the thing is with the retrospectives is that it's sort of mandatory to do a demo, even if you have nothing to demo. Now, because management is coming in, the product owner is coming in, the stakeholders, the customers, everybody, even the testers, they're all coming into this retrospective meeting, and they want to see what you've done. So what you do is you prepare a demo. Now, preparing demos, and they have to fail, by the way, because demos during retrospectives always fail. So you have to prepare that really careful. You have to spend at least 2 days to prepare the demo. We are going to put that in the flow guide, of course, right? So that's mandatory. Also, retrospectives, usually what comes out of it is that a list comes out with improvements, stuff that you could do better in the next sprint or iteration. Well, of course, we don't follow up on those points, because if we would, there would be nothing to improve during the next retrospective. And we do want to keep them. And the thing is, we can disturb the project even more by having them every 2 weeks instead of every month. So have them twice as often will actually help you not produce any code. Oh, by the way, and of course, we do need a Lego reference in our slide deck. That's mandatory. Now, I'll tell you a bit about real flow. Programmers, and you probably all are programmers, the thing is with programmers, and you have to realize that really carefully, is you cannot just sit at your desk and start typing away, right? You know that, right? It's like you sit at your desk, you stare at the screen, and you're like, oh, what was I doing, right? And slowly you get into flow. Slowly you start, oh yeah, this is what I was doing. And then you slowly start typing. Research has been done, and from a very large research, it appears that it takes 10 to 15 minutes to get into flow, which means you sit at your desk, you start getting into flow, and after a while, you start creating code. You start thinking about the right things, you start typing them, you start debugging them, stuff like that. Now, once you're disturbed by whatever, it takes about 50 minutes to get back into flow. So that means if you have 2 to 3 disturbances every day, you lose a lot of time in your work. And actually it appears from research that most people in projects, most developers, only have a single 2-hour stretch of coding that they're not disturbed. Now that is terrible, right? And of course, we're all jumpy people, so this is actually my own t-shirt, but I have on the slide deck here, is that what we need to do in our software development methodology is actually don't allow developers to get into flow. So how do you do that? Well, you basically organize random meetings throughout the week at some point in time during the day on whatever topic you can think of. Usually product owners on teams or managers are really good at coming up with these meetings. So let them do their work and plan these meetings at a random time every day. It will save you loads and loads of time, right?
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
what's next? Oh, you do that.
Oh,
Yep.
next, of course, is flow in the enterprise, because
Yes.
we have to have an enterprise model of flow. Otherwise, we can't make enough money. Again, it's about the money. So, first of all, this is what a usual team looks like, right? Everybody knows this picture, I guess. And it means there's a small team, they organize in the way they best meet their goals, or at least that's what it should be. And if you multiply it, if you have a big organization, can you just have multiple instances of this team design? Or should you have a large-scale project like SAFe or like LESS or Disciplined Agile 2.0?
Agile transformations. You need agile transformations.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
So does a large-scale organization and large-scale Agile also require a large-scale process to still make working software? Or do you even need sociocracy, which has more than 70 patterns, and this is only version 3.0, so every year there will be a new version added, 70 patterns that you should follow to be able to have enterprise Agile. Well, of course, you could also just copy Spotify, because they are the example for the whole branch, right? I was at a company just this week, right, interviewing, they had the Spotify model. It also says it in the vacancy, like, okay, everybody here does Spotify Agile, but they're
Whatever
not
that
Spotify.
may be, right?
So it's in multiple vacancies. You can everywhere you see, we are doing Spotify Agile. Is anyone here in a Spotify Agile project? Oh wow!
Oh,
You
get
see,
out of it, please.
It's out there. But you're obviously working at Spotify, right? And Spotify made this model because they had tremendous growth. They were multiplying 8x each year for a period of 10 years. And that insane growth required a lot of management. So they have one manager for every 2 people at Spotify. That's ridiculous, right? And we're copying this model. I think when I speak to you, most people don't really like managers, but we're going for the Spotify model. It doesn't help.
Oh, we love managers.
Yeah, of course. And if you look at this model, obviously there is a lot of management, because you have a guild manager, you have a chapter manager, you have a tribe manager, and you have a squad manager. So every person in this model has 4 managers. That's a lot. Or at least it could be.
You can only dream of that, right?
Yeah,
It's like
for me it's like a warm
4
bath.
managers.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, but the thing is, you're not Spotify, unless you are actually Spotify. But most of you guys aren't Spotify. So you should find a model that works for you, that works with your growth rate, that works with your goals, with your targets, and not something that you can copy from Spotify. You can be inspired by Spotify, but don't just copy it. Think, why did they do this? But of course, we're not going to think. We're going to have Big Flow Framework, BFF, so hashtag BFF. And we're going to add a new layer each year, just like SAFe. As you can see, every year there's a new layer added to SAFe to make sure we have all these new certifications, which will give us a lot of money. Also have a bunch of consultants being pushed out there again. So we're pretty sure we have a nice money machine and a nice cash cow here. Of course, when Spotify does something, we will add instantly a new Spotify layer as a plugin on our model, because that's the new best practice.
Yeah, I agree. And it can make us a lot of money, right? So that brings us down to tooling. Now, of course, as a developer, you're pretty happy with the tools you're using. I suppose you all use Visual Studio or Writer or whatever you're doing, or WebStorm. But there's much more important tooling out there, guys. And I'll explain to you about that. First of all, you need boards, right? You need Scrum boards, you need Kanban boards, you need so many boards that nobody actually can figure out what the progress in your project really is, right? That saves you from having deadlines. So this is a picture I actually took at a project I saw in France, actually. And so boards are more important. So actually, every board in Flow needs to have at least 20 columns. I don't care what you put in it, just like your architecture should at least have 11 layers, you should have 20 columns on your board, right? And if you do Enterprise Flow, which is coming out in version 3, I guess, pretty soon, right?
It is.
Actually, you're required to have a room that fits all these boards called the board room, right? And the company we work for, it's called the Blue Room. I don't know why, but it's called the Blue Room.
Because the company has a blue logo.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've only been working there for a year, so I don't know. Anyway, boards. So, what do you do for boards? Well, basically, to manage your boards, Post-its are not enough. Although I like Post-its a lot, I even have a package in my bag, including markers and stuff like that, but there's much more better tools to manage your boards. So we said, you know what, everybody's doing Jira anyway, so we'll just make it mandatory. So if you want to spend a day in the woods and get lost, just go to the settings in Jira. It'll cost you a day even to get out of them again. Right? It's a complicated tool, so that's good for our productivity, right? So what we'll do with it, you know, we'll create all these boards, and then, of course, we need charts to get our progress in. Now, Jira is pretty good at creating the wrong visualizations. So here's the chart that I mentioned before. This is actually, in most agile approaches, it's called a burn-down chart, but nobody's going down anyway, so we'll just call it a burn chart, right? Because you don't go down, but you burn money anyway. So in Flow, it's become the burn chart. This is the tool to manage your project, right? Every project should look at this every day and see that the line is going up all the time. That's what you should do in your project. And then there's tools for communication. Now, as I said, people in project with resources should not be disturbed, right? They need to get into Flow. That takes time, and every time you disturb them, they'll go out of Flow. So what we discovered is that, and we actually tried this out on our teams, everybody should wear noise-canceling headphones all the time. That is so easy, right? So if you get into Flow, you don't hear anything about what's going on in the room, you can program away. Isn't that cool? So, and also, all this communication between people, we just killed it. That is pretty cool, right? So, and we have also been experimenting with even better measures, like say, maybe we can all give everybody some of these. The only trouble is that nobody could see their screen anymore and type code. So it's a bit of a puzzle, right? Between disturbance and being able to see what's on the screen. So we just saved it for 2.0, right? Now, if people or resources need to communicate to save time, in Flow, we say that it's not allowed to have directional communication, right? You cannot talk to people right away, so you have to use other tools. Company we work for uses Skype. Okay? Slack is much more popular, right? If you want to be a hipster team, you have to use Slack. You have to introduce Slack. By the way, we figured out that it would be a good thing that all the people on the teams use Slack, and that they would create a new channel in Slack for every release. That way, if we can tag the release to the conversations in Slack, if there is a bug, we can actually trace it back to what people were saying on Slack. Now, wouldn't that be cool? Also, we will introduce the concept of pair slacking. Of course, you can figure out what that means, right? That is good. So, what else do we have?
Yeah. Of course, we have to have a manifesto, because everybody is getting a manifesto at this point, right? So, first, the history of manifestos. I looked it up, and I found that a manifesto, in its nature, is a published verbal declaration of the intentions, motives, or views of the issuer.
Oh, we have intentions?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, Cool.
And if you look at the history, there are some great manifestos being published, like the Communist Manifesto, which was handwritten and is in this picture, but also the Humanist Manifesto, the Declaration of Independence. And these are all multiple pages with actual words on them, explaining themselves.
Words? What do you mean, words?
Yeah, those are, I'll explain later during coffee or something. At some point, someone in IT thought, okay, we could have a manifesto of our own. Mostly they were political, or mostly they were artistic, but we can see that IT is going to become an art, right? So we can have actually our own manifesto. The first one was of the GNU project. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, GNU.
Actually, it was about free software. It was the first open source statement ever. And it has about 30 pages explaining why free software is important for the community. It's actually worth reading. I did, making this slide. Then there was the Hacker Manifesto about how you aren't a criminal if you're getting what other people are stealing from you. So it is also a nice manifesto, right? And then there was the Agile Manifesto. I mean, everybody's heard of this, right? And from that point, things are accelerating a bit. So we have the Software Craftsmanship Manifesto, which was in 2009, and we have the Agile HR Manifesto, and we have the WROC Manifesto. This is to be announced. It's not fully published, but people are signing it at the moment. So let's just look into the manifesto for software development. Everybody knows this one, right? It has this nice statements in this form of this over that. And the last line is, while we value the things on the right, we value the things on the left more. So it's not that we don't value the things on the right, we only value the things on the left.
That's how we value documentation?
Yeah, actually, that's what it says.
That's new to me.
Yeah, well, that's new to most people. So, obviously, talking to each other over processes and tools, which is kind of contrary to what we said. So we need a new manifesto, clearly, right? And working software over documentation, who does that these days? And collaboration over following a plan, well, that's just a bunch of crap. Then came the Software Craftsmanship Manifesto, and this is also the same style, because it was easy, right? You only have to have 1 page, not 60. You don't have to explain your intentions, you just have to find 2 words, one on the left side and one on the right side. So this was quite nice to copy,
That's
just like
easy.
Spotify.
We can do that, right?
Yeah, we can do that. And then came the Agile HR Manifesto, and they didn't even bother to say we value the things on the right anymore. So they just put secrecy on the right, and they put obligation on the right, all the things you just shouldn't have. These aren't even values anymore, right? So as a reaction, programmers made this one, the programming manifesto.
This is my favorite, for sure. I like this one. If you kind of read it, I'll read the first line. It says, we are a community of motherfucking programmers who have been humiliated by software development methodologies for years. And the last line says, we must destroy these methodologies that get in the way of programming, motherfucker. This is my favorite.
We could copy this one, but it's quite, it's much too nice, right? So we have our own flow manifesto. And of course, we have the over formulation. So we have extensive certification over hands-on experience. We have copying methodologies over thinking for yourselves, because otherwise you would meet your goals and you would actually have to work on bugs and everything, and that's extra work, so it's better not to have anything in production.
Right.
We have tool-driven confusion over building working software. We have endless meetings over individual flow, and we want mandatory gamification over authentic autonomy. And that is, while we ignore the things on the right, we do the things on the left. So that's quite clear, right? Everybody should learn this one by heart.
Yes, I think so too.
Because it will be in the flow certification.
Oh yeah, right. You need certification. You know why? Money. People need to make money, right? That's why you all certify, so we can make money. So that is the scheme we can make money too. Now, the thing with certification is, right? So who of you, there were a few Scrum Masters in the room, right? How many days of training does it take you to become a Scrum Master? 2 days. You don't even have to do the training, by the way. You can just do the exam. That's pretty cool. So anyway, if you look at different things like, let's say, karate. Now, Kim here has done a bit of karate. She's multiple times Dutch champion karate, whatever. And so I'm a bit scared of her anyway. So how long did it take you to become really, really good, become a master at karate?
I trained 25 hours for years per week.
How many years?
Since I was 8, and I went to European Championships when I was 23, so
15, 17?
15 years, 20 hours per week, something like that.
That is, and then you're becoming a master, right? So now again, Scrum. How many days was it again? 2 days, right? And then you're the expert on Scrum. People send you to teams and go salvage the teams because they get into trouble if they don't have a certified or a professional Scrum master. Now the thing is, what will happen with people who do the 2-day training course, come out of a different field into software development and do all this coaching, what they will do is they will apply what is in the Scrum guide, basically. Remember, that is a 16-page document, which you could have read during this talk, so you could have done the Scrum certification. They will apply that in a very dogmatic way. Now, I'll read to you what it is, right? A dogma is an established belief or doctrine, which is called Scrum, held by a religion, the Scrum.org thing, or a particular group or organization. It is authoritative and not to be disputed, doubted, or diverged from by the practitioners or believers. So you have to do what's in the Scrum guide. You cannot diverge from that. So once I was in a project, and then I talked to the project manager, and I said, so show me the project plan. He said, we don't have a project plan. I said, why not? He said, well, it's not in the Scrum guide. I said, well, at least show me the acceptance criteria from the customer. He said, we don't have them. I said, why? He said, well, it's not in the Scrum guide. Also, by the way, they had user stories, which are not in the Scrum guide. So it's a bit confusing anyway, right? So we should have our certification as well. So we are certain that if we have certification, that we have real flow professional resources in our projects, right? So we thought of that. And then we said, there's all these certification schemes out there. There's lots of them, right? You can choose, and you can do certifications the rest of the year, whatever you want. But we can do it much faster, right? So we gave you the 1-hour introduction to Flow. Now, basically, that's our training course. That's easy, right? You can do that. And then, of course, we need certification. So instead of having this 30 multiple choice questions, I don't know how many there are. I think there are 30, right? 30 multiple choice questions. We'll just make it a bit easier, right? We'll just do a 3-question certification, right? And if you can pass the test, you are all certified Flow resources. So you can come into Flow project and discuss that, right? So the thing what we thought of doing is that we said, you know what, we're going to do the certification right away. Isn't that cool? So after this hour, you can all become certified Flow resources. So the first question is, so just write down the answers and bear with me. So the first question is, what roles do we have in Flow? It's A, manager, project manager, and product owners. Will they do the work? B, we are all one team. No, we're not. C, lots and lots of roles, except for testers, of course. And D, resources. So, if you've noted down the answer, we'll go to question 2. Question 2 being, what's the goal of retrospectives in Flow? So the goal for retrospectives is to interrupt the daily flow of our resources, to endlessly discuss with the resources in our project, and why the resources in our project should work harder. That's B, right? That's the good answer, by the way. To make sure we spend 2 days preparing demos, sounds good to me too, and to watch demos filled together with our clients. So, if you all have the answers, we'll go to question 3, which is basically also the last question of this certification. So, we have certification in Flow because, A, we want well-trained resources in our project. That's the political right answer. It makes our methodology look important because all the other ones have those certifications as well. And 3, or C, Flow is so complicated, you need lots of training to become an expert. And D, we want to make money. So if you noted all the answers right, and I'll give you the results right away. All the answers were good, so you all passed the test. Which means you have now all become certified Flow resources. So because there's too many people in the room, we put the actually certificate on screen. So you can actually just take a picture, fill in your name, and show it to your boss that you've actually completed the course, and you can put it on your resume and stuff like that. So, by the way, we do need you to pay 200 euros every year to be able to continue to be a certified Flow resource. Now, I guess you sort of realize this is all not really true, right?
Yeah.
So we'll do a short retrospective on what we've done so far, right? Really short one, basically. So this is what we believe, right? If it is about software development. So I've been a software developer all my life. I started writing code when I was 15, I think 15, on the Commodore 64. One of you guys has the best t-shirt, which is the Commodore 64 t-shirt. Right, you. Great. If I would have had a book, you've gotten it. So I started programming. I love programming. Basically, programming is who I am. So I believe that software is built by people. It's not built by following a process. It's not built by listening to a project manager. It's because of you guys, right? You or we built the software. So people should facilitate us doing that work, actually. So next.
Yeah, next one is, we believe you should think for yourself. You should find an approach and methodology that fits your circumstances, your organization, and your goals. It's not the same if you're developing software for a car and you say, yeah, we have an experimental approach, we'll see where it takes us, because all the cars will be bashing into everything, right? You can take that approach on a front-end web page for something small, but you have to think, how am I going to approach this for yourself? And you can have inspiration from other people around you, but in the end, you have to find out what works best for you. For instance, if you look at one project we did where we had a migration from the old system to the new system, the people were saying, okay, we have to have an agile approach, moving data from one system to the other system. That was ridiculous. That was perfectly to do waterfall. Because we already knew all the specifications very clearly. So think for yourself what suits best. And there's not one right answer. It differs over time, over projects.
And then, of course, it's my strong belief that personal face-to-face communication works best. I've worked with developers for 30 years in projects, and the best work I've delivered with teams is that if I can sit in the middle of the team and the teams talk to each other directly, not wearing all these headphones and AR glasses or whatever you do, not through Skype, not through Slack, just face-to-face communication. I know that's not always possible, but if it is, please do communicate personally, right?
And value everybody on the team, because some people are great at innovating, and other people are great at finishing the work that the innovators thought of, right?
Yep.
And you have to have a safe environment for everybody. If somebody says something, don't burn them down, or don't have burn charts throwing at them in folded manner or something. Make sure everybody has the freedom to speak for themselves and value every opinion, because there's a reason everybody is in the team.
And remember, if you want to build code, if you want to write code, if you want to build tests, if you want to build the software, it takes a lot of focus and a lot of getting into flow, which means you have to respect people's flow. It takes a lot of work being able to do what we do, because this is really complicated work. I wouldn't say it's an art, but it's craftsmanship for sure. And I think especially managers need to appreciate that even more.
Just as learning should be more appreciated by managers too. I'm glad to see you all attending a conference, because this is kind of a learning event.
Yep.
But we need to learn a bunch of new stuff. And if we don't do that, not educating your people is much worse than the costs of educating your people, because otherwise they won't be up for the task. And continuous learning also requires this safe environment, because people by nature are born to do things the way they do today. And you have to learn new things, and that's, for most people, that's kind of a challenge. So make sure you guide them with this.
Yep. And next, I think teams work best when they're as independent as possible, when they're allowed and equipped to make their own decisions, to deal with their own technology, make choices, experiment. And don't get burned down if your experiment fails, because failure is part of what we do. Basically, failure is intrinsic in what we do every day, right? Every line of code that I write could break down. I test it, I try it again. I could create a solution that breaks down tomorrow. I have to repair it and take a different route. And that requires teams to be as independent as possible. Not being micromanaged by whoever, the product owner, the manager, the stakeholders, whoever. You should be an independent team, right?
Yeah, and to achieve that, you should have as little hierarchy as possible. Because I always see a conflict of interest, because the teams make their own decisions, are self-steering or autonomous. And then every year, there's an annual performance review by your manager who says, I have made up these goals for you, and you as a team may have gone that way, but I wanted you to go that way, so I'm going to give you a bad review. How can you have autonomy if you have a lot of managers all trying to affect the way the team is steering? So make sure you have little management and a lot of autonomy in the teams, because communication really scales very bad.
Yeah, and last but not least, I think experience and learning, continuously learning and gaining experience in whatever you do is much more important than having this particular certificate, whether that's a Microsoft certificate, although I value those more than, like, say, Scrum certificates. I don't say they're not important because they get you in on interviews. But personally, I never hire people based on certification or the keywords they have in their CV. I want to know what kind of people I have. Will they actually fit the team or add value to the team even more? So that's the last of the things that we really believe coming out of this talk. And there's only one more thing, which is the most important thing, I think, in life maybe, but especially in our work, and that's this, is that fun is, for me, the most important factor why I am in this business. Okay, I guess we're through, right?
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
Right on
thank
time.
you for being here, Kim.
Yeah, you too. Thank you all.